Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Nate here. And if I told you to think back, and imagine a time when Minecraft was the most popular game on YouTube, a new Call of Duty game on the horizon was all the rage, and Skyrim's modding scene was still the apex of fan content, you would probably think back to 2011 or 2012. However, thanks to what can only be defined as an inexplicable time loop, all of those things are seemingly true today in 2019. And indeed, Skyrim's modding scene is still going shockingly strong. So, I welcome you to episode 9 of Immersive Skyrim Mods, the sometimes inappropriately named series where we dive into a few of the community's best creations. Usually new, but sometimes old. Anyway, without further ado, let's do further. Starting off, we have The Last Refuge by Roadhouse699. Published July 12th, this is one of those larger mods that's going to introduce new locations, new voice-acted characters, and even some new items. But before we can dive into this mod, I think it's necessary to talk a little bit about its predecessor. You see, The Last Refuge is a sequel to another, similar-sized project called The Valley of Outcasts, which released back in June of 2018 by the same mod author. Valley of Outcasts centered around a mysterious, bandit-occupied fortress to the south of Skyrim that the Dragonborn could conquer and build up into a proper settlement, with some help. Most of the gameplay was focused on the expansion of this new little fiefdom. You know, constructing buildings, hiring various workers, enlisting guards, and even inviting potential residents. As your new micro-kingdom grew, the player would soon be asked for help by many of the new inhabitants, who offered quests attached to their own interesting stories. The Last Refuge takes many of the narratives we explored in its predecessor and expands on them, sending us to a few new locations, introducing us to some new characters, and thrusting players into quite a few new quests. Many of the old voice actors and characters are back again, reprising their roles, so there genuinely feels like a lot of continuity. The Last Refuge isn't so much about building up a town as it is story-driven content, focusing on the characters and plot. The principal new locations added by this mod are a huge new dwarven dungeon, as well as an icy Forgotten Vale-esque region not too far away. Altogether, both Refuge and its Outcasts predecessor should offer a few hours worth of gameplay each. And while they're certainly not beyond Skyrim big, they're definitely a fair bit larger than most creations. I'd argue both are somewhere around the size of the Forgotten City mod in terms of world space and total time necessary for completion. So, if you're looking for a way to spend an evening or two, consider giving either of Roadhouse's creations a go. Next on our list, at each of the 5 tiers within the Alteration Magic Tree, from Novice to Master, you'll be able to learn a new Flesh spell. I know, sounds charming. Each of these Flesh spells will improve either the caster's armor rating or physical damage resistance in some way for the duration of the effect. In ascending order, there's Oak Flesh, Stone Flesh, Iron Flesh, Ebony Flesh, and finally, Dragon Hide. The spells can become particularly useful in the later game, as Dragonhide, for example, allows you to ignore 80% of melee and arrow damage for 30 seconds, even better if you dual cast it, which, as you might imagine, can really change the tide of a boss battle. Alas, despite oftentimes being quite advantageous to use, the visual effect produced by Flesh spells leaves much to be desired. All 5 of the spells use the same sort of bluish hue mist that will engulf the player when the spell is in use. And this same animation effect is even used by the game with a few non-alteration spells anyway. Well, modder Deserter X decided he just couldn't take it any longer. I give you FleshFX, a creation designed specifically to overhaul the visuals of those Flesh spells. Barely released on July 19th, it's already garnered over 30,000 accumulative downloads on the Nexus between both Skyrim versions, easily making it the most popular mod of the month, and one of the most popular of the year. So clearly quite a few people agree. These new animations are a step above vanilla. FleshFX creates 5 new, unique visual effects, one for each spell to replace the old one, and they all look pretty good. As you're seeing on screen now, the new visuals are meant to make it a lot easier to identify which exact flesh spell a character is employing, and they do a great job. Not only does this just look neat on our own character, appearing both high quality and more subtle at times, but it's also going to make it a lot easier to tell which exact version of this power enemy mages are casting. So if you see a foe covered by the brown, leathery textures of oak flesh, you know they're probably not going to be much of a threat. But if one is surrounded by the flames and magma created by the Dragonhide variant, you know that they're not gonna feel most physical damage you do, and it may be best to just wait out the spell, or resort to magic instead. There's not tremendously more to add here. It's a small mod, but one of those that I consider to be a unilateral improvement over vanilla. And it's also grown quite popular, so I think it definitely earned a mention. Coming in at number 3 is the Mihail Monsters and Animals Collection by Mihail Mods. So this is a bit of a unique entry, because Mihail Monsters and Animals isn't actually an individual mod, but instead an entire series of mods by author Mihail Romanov. Each one introduces a new creature, with a totally custom model, texture, and sometimes special powers to the world of the Elder Scrolls V. Being monsters and animals, these new creatures, as you might imagine, are typically hostile, or at best passive. Some are based on beings we've met in previous Elder Scrolls games, or read about in various Elder Scrolls books that just never made an appearance in Skyrim. For instance, ice golems, beings that could be encountered in Skyrim's northern provinces with the mod installed, appeared as foes all the way back in the Elder Scrolls I arena, and have been reimagined with a stunningly amazing appearance. Minotaurs appeared in the forests of Cyrodiil as recently as Oblivion. Bantam Gars are reptilian, chicken-like creatures, native to Solstheim that debuted in ESO, and so on. Other entries in the Mihail Monsters collection are entirely unrelated to the Elder Scrolls universe, and were sort of created just for fun. Mimics are these horrifying creatures inspired by the Dungeons & Dragons universe. Necrophages are more zombie-like beings, based off of similar entities featured in the Witcher games. The list goes on and on. What's so stunning to me is the insane amount of quality in all of these new characters' visuals. You can tell the author really enjoys doing this and has a lot of talent. Overall, Mihail has over 50 individual mods in his series, and is continuously uploading new ones. So you'll have the ability to pick and choose which ones exactly you would like. If you only want lore-friendly Elder Scrolls monsters and animals populating your game, so be it. 50 individual mods is certainly a bit to download if you want the whole selection, so hopefully the author does eventually just release a couple of collections or packs in the future, but otherwise I couldn't be much happier. I'll link Mihail's profile in the description, where I definitely recommend giving his series a go. For 4th spot, I feel like this would be a really great time to mention Underhanded Slavery, Dres Operations Part 1. I know, title's a bit of a mouthful, which was co-created by both Joseph Russell and Mihail Mods. Yeah, the last guy. Originally released around a year ago, but taken down shortly after for quite some time, this mod was only recently re-uploaded to the Nexus, with a number of patches and fixes. I'm unsure why it was pulled down for so long, but nonetheless, it's back, and certainly worth a go. Underhanded Slavery is a short, fully voice-acted quest mod, centering around a small camp that has just appeared on the island of Solstheim. Here, we learn that the Dres clan, one of the great houses of Morrowind, has built a small slaver outpost. Slavery is a pretty big part of Morrowind's own lore. It's said for centuries, Dark Elves in southern Morrowind operated large plantations, worked by captured Khajiits and Argonians. So this is pretty in line with the themes of the franchise. The Dunmer at this camp are currently training a small number of Khajiit and Argonian slaves. further interaction with the leader of this whole operation, a man named Galangar, will reveal him to be a belligerent, cruel individual. I know, how shocking. Ultimately, the choice will be yours. Either free the poor souls trapped here before they're sold off, which can be done either by simply overpowering the guards and initiating an uprising, or just the clever use of your tongue. Alternatively, you can kind of side with the slavers and make an investment in their project. Ultimately, the mod's a pretty fun way to spend a session. You'll get to experience a neat new story, some new Argonian leather armor, and maybe even make some new friends along the way. The mod authors are planning an eventual sequel as well, that'll focus on one of the more prominent Khajiit captives that you can help free. He's got a pretty cool backstory, but I'll let you discover it for yourself. Anyhow, Underhanded Slavery House Dres Operations Part 1 is available on both Skyrim versions on the PC, and has been ported to the Xbox One. And finally, to wrap this video up, I want to talk a little bit about the Creation Club. Over the last week, the shop has seen 3 new releases. Normally, whenever the Creation Club gets a wave of content, I rush to make a video to cover it. However, all 3 of these were really small 100 credit armor mods, and there was only 3 of them. Therefore, an entire dedicated video just doesn't seem all that necessary. But I figured we could fit them into this one. I mean, hey, they are mods, right? Just in exchange for money. Anyway, as stated, there's 3 mods that recently dropped on the store, each one for 100 Bethesda bucks. So if you want all of them, that's gonna be around $3. And each adds in a new set of armor based on similar ones featured in the Elder Scrolls Blades' mobile game. The sets are Elven Hunter, Daedric Mail, and Studded Dragon Scale. You'll notice their visual appearances, while technically unique, appear remarkably similar to some more generic armors that already exist in the base game. Elven Hunter obviously bears some striking resemblances to typical Elven armor, and consists of just 3 pieces, a chest piece, gauntlets, and boots, accumulatively offering 56 points of damage protection. Again though, no helmet, so if you add one you can mix those numbers up. The Studded Dragon Scale looks very much like normal Dragon Scale, and is a full set, totaling out to 100 points of damage protection. Finally, the most unique looking of the 3 in my opinion is Daedric Mail, which, like Elven Hunter armor, has no helmet, but it gives the wearer 80 points of damage protection when all 3 pieces are equipped. It's obviously taking some cues from normal Daedric armor, but a more unique color pattern and a heavy use of scales distinguishes it a fair bit. If these were free, community-produced mods, I think they'd be great, but since they're being sold, even at $1 each, my opinion's a little different. I mean, it's not an especially offensive offering, I think the price is actually fairly reasonable, but as a matter of opinion, I just don't like the designs enough to pay for them personally. Well, obviously I bought them to make this video, but hypothetical non-Skyrim YouTuber Nate probably would have stayed away. In a previous Creation Club wave not too long ago, Bethesda also introduced some similar new armors on their marketplace, also for $1 each. And if you remember my video then, I personally liked a lot of those a lot better than these. Though, maybe that's just because I'm a sucker for closed-face helmets. No matter, these new offerings just went live on the Creation Club, so I figured I'd present them to you guys. And with that out of the way, we are going to wrap up our 9th installment of Immersive Skyrim mods that sometimes aren't very immersive and are sometimes paid. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Which of the ones that we showed off today were your own favorites? And what community-generated content should I cover next? Leave a comment down below. As always, like ratings are very much appreciated, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace out, everyone.